Hello, and welcome to another edition of Das Reboot, the show about reboots, remakes, and adaptations. I am one of your hosts, Zachary Lyle.
And I'm Stephen Jacoby.
And it is Hallows Eve. It is time to sit here and go to the dark side, the mystical side of the undead, as we cover Dracula.
Oh, yes. One of my favorite fictional characters ever.
It's definitely one of those characters that sits with your childhood, because there's so many different, usually when you're a kid, you go to a Halloween party and you get the bag of candy.
Oh, yeah.
And what's inside is that
fake teeth.
False set of teeth.
There you go. He's also the original Dark Lord, in my opinion. You got the Dark Lords now. You got Darth Vader. You got the guy from Harry Potter, which I can't remember right now. The one who shall not be named.
Yeah, we're not going to say that on the radio here. We're not going to say that on the air.
Exactly. But Dracula, he's the original badass Dark Lord.
Indeed.
Other than, Satan.
Well, some people actually forget about Satan.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
I partially blame Stephen Lynch for that.
I don't really get that reference right now.
I'll show you during the break.
All right. But today, like Zach said, we are doing Dracula. We're doing the versions 1931 versus the 1992 Wes Craven remake. And it's going to be tasty.
Yes. It is going to be a night you will not forget.
Oh, yes. And happy Halloween to everyone out there. We'd like to hear what your favorite horror movie is. Zach, when I was younger...
Mind you, that's horror.
Horror.
Not horror movie.
Horror movie. Well, we can hear your favorite horror movie, too. I'd like to know about that.
You would,
yeah.
Of course.
Melissa Ashley, if you're listening. Anyways, wow. I can't think now. After that
I'm sorry, I got you off the rails with your train of thought.
I am so off the rails right now, I'm going ballistic.
How dare you?
In my pants.
Something about your childhood?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Something about my childhood. Zach, when I was younger, I, for the life of me, could not watch any horror films. I was such a, sheltered kid. Mm-hmm. And when I, watched films... Now, mind you, films back in the day on, VHS... They looked a lot darker, a lot more grainy compared to the hi-fi, high-definition clarity that we have now. And to me, that kind of loses the whole horror aspect of movies.
You lose the character.
Yeah, you sure
can get.
Indubitably. And I feel like I'm not that scared anymore because of it.
I have found it very difficult to sit here and really get scared by a good horror movie nowadays. I mean, they'll make you jump sometimes.
They will, but...
They'll come at you with, all of a sudden a bird flies out of nowhere, and it's got nothing to do with the actual danger, but it's one of those things that takes you by surprise. And I'm the guy in the theater that's in the back just...
You're the asshole.
I'm not necessarily the asshole, but I'm the guy that's realizing that that's not the reason to be scared right now.
Well, my wife and I, we just had a horror movie marathon yesterday to celebrate Halloween. This is something we've been doing for the last 2 years now.
You and I both, my friend.
And, we go on Hulu, we go on Netflix, and we try to find a good horror film to watch and try to be scared. We're coming up empty these days, not because that there's nothing out there, it's just that because no film has enough balls to scare you nowadays.
I wouldn't say this is so much of a scare as it was a thriller, but I definitely had to go back and watch Saw. The original Saw.
Now that's a freaky movie.
Not necessarily a freaky movie, but it's definitely suspenseful.
Indubitably.
And it gets you thinking, what's going to be happening here. I'm one of those people that can kind of line up how a movie is going to be turning out within the first 10 minutes. And this one actually threw me for a loop to the point where I stood up in the theater clapping with the way that it ended.
Nice. Very, very nice.
But as far as
Those
actually
are the best movies.
As far as actually scaring, it's a little bit more difficult because everything's oversaturated with special effects or lacking storyline or horrible actors.
Or just too much storyline.
Or too much
and just
storyline,
not enough,
exactly.
like... It's just so slow. It's just so, like... Not even scary. It's like trying to be something else other than a scary movie, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not trying to come out in their own right. They're trying to sit here and mimic something that scared them before.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's getting lost.
Yep. Let me give you a little advice. We went to Family Video 2 nights ago to get some movies, and there was like, this is a really good idea, I think. They had like popcorn buckets with random movies inside, and you didn't know what movie it was because it was just like this blank case, and it only had like the genre written on it, like crime horror movie, horror, or horror monster or something like that. So we went with a crime thriller movie.
Right.
Only cost $1, which was...
Did you get 7?
Well, here's the thing. We put it in. I didn't even look at it. I put it in, and the movie was called Diary of a Cannibal.
Ooh.
So, originally, right off the bat, we thought it was going to be great. And just the art for it just looks super spooky. This movie looked like it was done by a high schooler.
Oh, goodness.
And it was so bad that after 10 minutes, we started fast-forwarding through it just to like get a glimpse of what the movie was about, and man, we threw it away after doing that.
Now, when you say a high schooler did it, I've seen some talented kids in high school sit here and put together some amazing videos. Are you talking like the point of view shooting that you get with certain movies like
I'm talking about everything.
Project Almanac?
I'm talking about everything.
Everything was just...
Yep, just trash. It looked like a YouTube video.
You got to be careful because there are some good YouTube videos out here.
I agree, but
And we are broadcasting on YouTube, so...
I'm just... Touche. But I'm just saying, it was a bad movie, and we're never doing that random thing again, unfortunately.
I went a slightly different route. Thursday, I sat here and I realized that, one, you guys had my copy of Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Yeah. About that movie.
Did you see that?
We turned it off after 10 minutes.
Didn't like it? Too much singing?
I didn't know it was a musical horror film.
Heck yeah.
Like, you told me it was like a horror film, but not a musical, so I was just, like, not prepared for that. I guess I gotta be in a
There's a reason it's called Repo, the Genetic Opera. It is
Fine.
It is a slightly refined taste.
Slightly refined the taste.
But it was one of those movies that I happened to find on a happenstance, let's call it. And
I pity you.
well, I latched onto it. I thought it was a good movie, and I took it to the school that I went to for radio and television broadcasting, and we ended up sitting down and watching it as a class, and actually like getting some pointers for our
Never
project.
the same again.
Well, we were getting some pointers for our Halloween project, so
Sure, I understand that.
certain angles and lighting effects and stuff like that we needed to utilize.
Well, it did have a good production value to it. I'll give it that.
Yes.
Much, but I don't know. Couldn't
Some of
last.
some of the singing is painful, and it's also painful to see Paris Hilton on film and not being like immediately slaughtered.
I'm glad we never got to that point.
Yes.
Anyway, shall we continue on with the meat?
Well, I was going to finish with my story of sitting here telling you I ended up getting 4 movies Thursday night. I ended up getting Beetlejuice. I
Classic.
got Hocus Pocus,
Hocus Pocus classic.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, and something that I did not know existed, and I'm excited to check it out, Little Shop of Horrors Director's Cut.
Okay.
Now, there's only 9 more minutes of film, but you got to wonder if that's like 2 more songs, or adding more of a plot line, or if the ending is going to be more like the original movie, which brings me to the point of possibly next season doing that for Halloween.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Well, I wonder if there is a porn version called Little Shop of Horrors.
More than likely, yes.
Probably.
And the plant looks like a giant vagina.
That's kind of horrifying, actually.
Would they call that tulips?
All right, I have a funny story. when I was in college.
Do we want to be telling this on the air? Or do
yes,
we want to get?
We really do. We really do.
Let's go for it then.
It's hilarious and so wrong, and it'll bring awareness to those out there about homeless people and what they think and how they think.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, I was outside the college one day of the music building, and I was having a smoke, and this homeless bum comes up and asks everyone for like $1 or anything like that. All of us said no. So he decides to leave, but on his way he gives us advice. He said...
Hold on, I have to brace myself for this.
He just yells out, "Hey, be careful of the vagina, man. That thing is scary up close." And you can tell what went wrong with his life. Anyway.
Wow. He's got a point, though. It can be quite intimidating.
Well, all right. Speaking of other bloody matters.
Oh.
I went there.
Way too far.
Yep.
Way too far.
That's me. Mr. Stephen Jacoby. Way too far of things.
Pushing the line.
Yep.
Anyways, let's...
Well, I'm pushing it, all right.
Let's move on. Let's first, before we really get into the Dracula movies, let's cover the 1922 movie Nosferatu.
Ooh.
It was actually released June 3rd, 1929 in the United States, but it was made in Germany in 1922. We have the director F.W. Murnau. The screenplay was written by Henrik Galeen, and the story, of course, is by Bram Stoker. This movie was only found in English and German. We have Max Schreck as Graf Aluk, or Count Aluk. Gustav von Wangenheim as Hutter, and Greta Schroeder as Ellen.
Now, one thing about this movie is it's a silent film.
It is a silent film. It is a German expressionist horror film as well. But there's no speaking in this movie.
Yeah.
All you'll hear is music, and there's an interesting story about that music.
What's that story?
Well, I will be
getting there soon.
Getting there. I will be getting there as soon as I get the synopsis. Wisburg, Germany, based estate agent Nock dispatches his associate Hutter to Count Aluk's castle in Transylvania as the Count wants to purchase an isolated house in Wisburg. They plan on selling him the one across the way from Hutter's own home. Hutter leaves his innocent wife, Ellen, with some friends while he is away. Hutter's trek is an unusual one, with many locals not wanting to take him near the castle where strange events have been occurring.
Ooh.
Once at the castle, Hutter does manage to sell the Count the house, but he also notices and feels unusual occurrences, primarily feeling like there is a dark shadow hanging over him, even in the daytime when the Count is unusually asleep. Hutter eventually sees the Count's sleeping chamber in a crypt, and based on a book he has recently read, believes the Count is really a vampire, or Nosferatu.
Nosferatu is the Romanian word for vampire, BTW.
While Hutter is trapped in the castle, the Count, hiding in a shipment of coffins, makes his way to Wisburg, causing death along the way.
Now, I have not seen this movie, but from what I have seen, it scares the shit out of me.
It's one of those interesting movies because it's one of the earlier films. Of course, it's in the silent era, as we mentioned earlier. But this movie also wasn't quite up to the times as far as the lighting effects. So when it comes to the filmography, you sit here and I found myself having a hard time distinguishing what was supposed to be daytime, what was supposed to be nighttime. I quickly got lost in time.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be hard.
But one of the interesting things is that they recognize this, and for certain copies of the film, they managed to tint the film blue to signify that it was night.
It's funny you mention that because I was just watching Deliverance with John Voight and Burt Reynolds. And one of the scenes on there where John Voight is climbing up the mountain, it's actually daytime, and like they depict it as night. But what they did was they tinted it blue to depict nighttime. So that was a nice little effect they had.
A little early trick of the trade.
Indubitably. Now, one thing about this movie, like I saw, like I don't want to say the remake of it, but just like the telling of the movie called The Shadow of the Vampire with John Malkovich, and that was a really, really funny movie because it depicted the main actor who played the vampire in that film as an actual vampire, and so he was just like hired to do this movie.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, Max Schreck.
Interesting. Okay, moving on. We might figure it out later. The original film is actually titled Nosferatu Eine Symphonie des Grauens, which roughly translates to Nosferatu, a Symphony of Horror.
Symphony of Horrors.
Indeed. Let's see. After 85 years, virtually all of the exteriors are left intact in the cities of Wismar and Lübeck.
So you can go and visit these places.
Yes. Now, mind you, this was made back in 1922, and it's sitting here saying 85 years. So the information is slightly outdated, but I'm hoping that it remains true that these are actually intact.
I hope so, too.
An interesting thing about this movie, it was actually banned in Sweden.
In Sweden?
In Sweden.
Why?
Well, they did not want it. It was due to excessive horror. But the ban was finally lifted in 1972.
Wow, almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years.
Jesus.
I don't really see how it's excessive horror, considering they don't depict really much violence.
Well, yeah, there's not that much violence, but, you know, just the eerie feeling, I guess, you know.
I suppose.
To those with thin skin and very, very scary souls.
Yes.
Yes.
Count Aluk is only seen blinking one time on the screen near the end of part 1.
That's creepy.
That's creepy, but that also relates into 1931's version of Dracula. There'll be a little bit of information that kind of relates to this original film. The creature that they say is the werewolf during the scene in the inn is actually a striped hyena.
They have a striped hyena in the film?
They have a striped hyena that they're claiming is a werewolf.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, I forgot to look this up. Aren't those extinct now?
Striped hyenas?
I
never knew they existed, so probably.
For some reason, I think they may be extinct, but I could be wrong. That could just be my active imagination.
My active imagination right now is thinking of Ed from The Lion King, the crazy hyena with eyes. Yeah, and how much he resembles my dog so much.
You know, I should. Which dog are you
Apollo,
talking about?
my
of course.
collie. Yeah, tongue and everything, just crazy.
Yep, I've seen that face.
Yeah,
I've babysat that. Well, I've dog sat that face.
there you go.
That sounded so dirty. Anyways, moving on.
What have you been doing to my dogs?
Nothing. All known prints and negatives were actually destroyed under the terms of settlement of a lawsuit by Bram Stoker's widow.
Mm-hmm.
However, of course, you know, the film is out here in other countries, so
Yep.
that's how I've got my copy.
Yep, they smuggled out prints somehow, which is good for them, because it's one of those classics of the silent film era.
And they might have snuck it out in a load of coffins or some sort of an orifice. I don't know.
Up someone's butt.
The concept in popular culture that sunlight is lethal to vampires is actually based on this film.
On this film?
Yes.
Not any other depictions before, not...
Apparently not.
Huh.
It's depicted as such a death for the very first time in film history. And F.W. Murnau knew that he would be sued for borrowing heavily from Bram Stoker's 1897 novel, Dracula, without permission.
Wow.
But he went along and did it anyways. He changed the ending in order so that way he could say that this film and Dracula were not exactly the same.
Exactly, and that's something you have to do if you're going to create a film that's kind of closely resembling Dracula, you know?
It's not closely resembling. It's almost identical. I mean, they changed some names, you know. You no longer have Count Dracula, it's Count Aluk. Or Nosferatu. And then Ellen, of course, they changed her character's name in Dracula. Well, her character's name in Dracula is Mina.
Right.
So this was a foreshadowing of good things to come.
You know that Dracula is not the original vampire novel, right?
Oh, blow my mind, why don't you?
The original's by James Malcolm Reimer and Thomas Peckett Prest. And it was 1847 book called Varney the Vampire. And it came out as like a bunch of penny dreadfuls as well.
You say Varney the Vampire?
Yeah, and it's
I've got two images in my head. One is like this vampire going up to children singing, "Oh, I love you." Or I've got like a vampire with like a tan cap and like a jean shirt on with a tan vest sitting there going, "You know what I mean, Vern?"
But Dracula didn't come out after that. The next one came out was called Carmilla. And that was about a female vampire who was a lesbian and went after this younger woman. So that's where a lot of the erotica of vampires may have originated from.
They could only get together 3 to 5 days out of the month.
And you say I'm bad.
Hey, the joke's been floating out there for years.
I guess so. Anyways.
I just had to snatch it.
I see what you did there.
Oh, I'm so bad today.
Oh, my God.
I blame my lack of sleep and work.
Yep.
But not lack of work, lack of sleep.
Any more about Nosferatu, or should we get into...
I think that's a good little introduction.
Okay, what can you tell us about the 1931 edition?
1931 edition came out February 14th, 1931. We have directors Todd Browning and Karl Freund. It was, of course, written by Bram Stoker. We also have Hamilton Dean, who adapted it from the play, John L. Balderston, who adapted it from the play, and Garrett Fort, who wrote the play. This is, of course, is a production of Universal Studios, and it belongs to the Universal Studios Monster Squad, I guess you could say.
Monster Squad.
Monster Squad!
By the Book of Murphy, we are the Monster Squad.
Yes. So, in case you have not seen this movie, I'm just going to forewarn you. Spoiler alert.
Here it goes, and there it went.
Ringing out of my ears here. The dashing, mysterious Count Dracula, played by Bela Lugosi, after hypnotizing a British soldier, Renfield, played by Dwight Fry, into his mindless slave, travels to London and takes up residence in an old castle. Soon Dracula begins to wreak havoc, sucking the blood of young women and turning them into vampires. When he sets his sights on Mina, played by Helen Chandler, the daughter of a prominent doctor, vampire hunter Van Helsing, played by Edward Van Sloan, is enlisted to put a stop to the Count's never-ending bloodlust. This is one of those movies that I didn't really get to watch as a kid. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like you. I wasn't really able to watch too many scary movies unless I was over at a friend's house and my parents weren't watching.
Right.
Which is how I had like a week or two where I did not want to sit on the toilet because of watching it. But when I finally did get introduced to this movie, it was one of those movies that just kind of sits with you, because even for its early production, it's very well done. They have great camera angles. They have these special lighting effects that they did to sit here and set the mood and give you more of a sense of, okay, well, this shot is during the daytime, this shot is during the nighttime.
Which is kind of hard to depict in black and white films.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be, especially if you want to show the picture, but not like drown it out in darkness.
Sure. Absolutely.
Bela Lugosi actually played the role of Dracula on Broadway in 1927 before touring the country with the show.
Oh, wow.
It actually opened up in the Fulton Theater on October 5th, 1927, and it ran for 261 performances.
Jesus.
Yeah.
How long did that run? That must have been like at least 3 years.
I'd say so.
Jesus.
The American performance of the British stage actor Hamilton Dean's adaptation of the book was actually just a smashing success, baby. Soon after the play began touring, Universal started to express interest in the script. Also in the original cast was Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing and Herbert Bunston as Dr. Seward. So these three actors were the only original actors from the 1927 Broadway production that repeated their roles in the film. So it kind of goes back to Death Takes a Holiday, when they did the radio production and kept their death.
Hey, how about that?
Edward Van Sloan and Dwight Frye also appeared in the horror classic Frankenstein. They are the only two actors to have appeared in both films.
Monster Squad.
Oh, I tried to watch that today and I ended up getting an advertisement instead. I was very upset. So I may have to swing by Family Video or Redbox or...
Just don't get those random movies I was telling you about. It's good popcorn though, but no, not the random.
I don't do well with popcorn, but we'll keep that off the air.
Oh.
Before he was cast as Count Dracula, Bela Lugosi acted as an unpaid intermediary for Universal Pictures in negotiating with the widow of Bram Stoker, and he did this in an attempt to persuade her to lowering her asking price for the filming rights to the Dracula property.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, she wanted $200,000.
Huh. That's quite a lot of money considering the budget, which we'll get into later.
Yes.
So, wow.
But after 2 months of negotiation, they apparently got her down to $60,000.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's lowballing compared to what she was asking.
Exactly.
Jesus.
But this, however, further demonstrated to Universal how desperate Lugosi was to repeat his stage success as Count Dracula and secure his role in the film.
Uh-huh. Huh.
But they did better. It wasn't $60,000 that they bought it for. They actually bought it for $40,000.
Oh, how'd they manage that?
So that's a good $160,000 less than the original asking price.
That sucks.
So, but you have to think, this is one of the top movies that Universal has put out. Giggity.
And boy, do they put out.
Yeah. Bela Lugosi was actually so desperate to repeat his stage success and play Count Dracula for the film that he actually agreed to a contract paying him $500 per week for a 7-week shooting cycle.
Huh.
Now, you sit here, you give me this nod, you give me this little pouty duck face. I don't know what to explain it, but that, even for that time, that was an insultingly small amount during the days of the Depression.
Yeah. Yeah, it was days of depression back then.
Exactly.
Assholes.
They actually originally planned to make this a big budget adaptation for Dracula that would strictly adhere to Bram Stoker's novel. But because of the stock market crash in 1929 and the beginning of the Great Depression, Universal actually chose not to risk an investment on such a sprawling film. But they managed to adapt it to a much less expensive Hamilton Dean stage play. So something tells me that's the whole reason that they went from 200,000 down to 40,000. Is because it didn't matter how much they wanted. They needed that much to survive. And also, due to studio demands to cut costs, the film was actually shot in sequence.
No. Wow. I know a lot of films don't actually do that. So
exactly. So it's one of those things where, you know, you sit here and you watch a movie and you're like, okay, well, I wonder what they shot first. This was actually beginning to end shot exactly the way you're seeing it.
They must have added a little tidbit of suspense to the actors involved.
You said bit.
Titty bit.
Oh my.
Yep.
The large expensive sets built for the Transylvania Castle and Carfax Abbey sequences actually remained standing after filming was completed, and Universal, of course, put them to use again for many other movies over the decade.
Do we know which movies?
Unfortunately, I did not look that up. You caught me at the one point that I did not look up.
Oh, that's my job, though.
That's your job?
Catch you with the pants down.
Can you at least lube?
I could.
I think we need to cut that part out. Although it was his most famous role, Bela Lugosi played Dracula only once more on screen in the comedy Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948.
I can only imagine how that went.
Now, you look at his acting career and you see that he's done other movies.
Sure.
But unfortunately, these are only Dracula-like characters in these movies, such as The Return of the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
The only pure Draculas are in Dracula and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Interesting.
So, food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I had said with Nosferatu, unfortunately, I had my wires crossed.
What happened?
Well, we had talked about music.
Yeah.
In the background. I was thinking of that movie instead of this movie. Because with Dracula, the 1931 version, there was no real musical soundtrack in the film because it was believed that, with sound being such a recent innovation in the films, the audience would not accept hearing music in a scene that there was no explanation for.
And I recall the only music that was in the scene was when they're at the symphony on the deck and everything, and they hear the symphony. That's what's playing.
I do believe so.
It kind of bothered me, though, because I like music in the film, and the only thing I heard other than like the sound effects and the voice was goddamn tape hiss. Did you? Well, that was pretty annoying. You heard that too, right?
It's just one of those things that brings character to the movie. At least in my thing, I think of it as the film spirits guarding over this movie and sitting here going, "You shall not touch this quality."
To me, it's just fucking tape hiss.
Well, tomato, potato, it's all the same.
To a sound engineer, that is an enemy that must be dealt with.
It can be.
Can be. Well, you can have like tolerable tape hiss, but this was intolerable to me. It was just on that extra level where it just kind of...
Did you turn your surround sound off?
I did, actually.
Just checking.
Funny you mentioned that.
Just checking.
Yeah, we did. Oh.
Dracula's castle was actually painted on a glass in front of the camera.
That's a good 3D depiction on glass, then.
It's one of those early tricks of the trades that some people don't even think about. The coach actually traveling along the road was real, but the background was not.
That's cool.
So it's really interesting to see some of these old tricks of the trade where they can make something seem like it's there, but it's not.
Yep.
And I believe that reverts back to American Jesus. With the first one, they did certain tricks like that to where they had something moving in the scene, but then they had a painted piece of glass to sit here and...
That is RoboCop. We call it American Jesus.
That is part of the Book of Murphy. In the scene where Dracula and Renfield are traveling to London by boat, the footage shown is actually borrowed from a Universal silent film called The Stormbreaker.
Ooh.
Back in 1925. Now, see, silent films were projected as a different frames per second speed. So when you watch this, you'll see that there's jerky movements and quicker than normal action in these shots. And that's due to the fact that this was a silent film put into a sound film or a talkie.
A talkie. And that's what messes with the FPS?
Yes, frames per second.
FPS!
Means I love you. Several famous elements are often associated with Dracula are not visible in this film.
Like what?
Well, at no point do you see Dracula display his fangs.
No, you don't. I don't remember that.
And also, you don't see the famous vampire bite mark on the neck.
Oh yeah, I was like looking for that on Mina when they were like inspecting her neck.
You
and
don't see
I was just like, where? I don't see anything.
Although for some reason it is visible in the Spanish version.
Wait, does that mean it's the same film, only Spanish dubbed, and they put an edit where it is visible, or what?
I have no idea. You caught me off guard again.
Interesting.
Cinematographer Karl Freund achieved the effect of Dracula's hypnotic stare by aiming 2 pencil spotlights into actor Bela Lugosi's eyes.
Oh my god! And what a stare that was too.
Well, the thing about this is that the man obviously wanted to reprise his role.
Yep.
He trusted his cinematographer, so he went along with it. Some people are actually sitting here saying that he did not speak enough English for this movie and was sitting here having to, like, basically kind of like Jackie Chan does in some of his films, constantly sat here and coached to say the correct lines.
Right.
But he was actually at the top of his English game with this movie.
Huh. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, like, how Bela Lugosi was also in the stage production of this, and there's one film where the main actor is the same way, and that was Fiddler on the Roof back in 1971.
Yes.
With Topol, I think his name is. I don't really remember, but man, did he love that role. He really brought it. Bela Lugosi as well.
Yes. I did not recognize him in Day of the Dead, but after looking at his IMDb, I knew that if I were a rich man.
Have you ever listened to The Churches?
The Churches?
Spelled with a V instead of a U?
No.
There's a song they have called Bela Lugosi's Dead.
Yikes. That's kind of harsh.
It is very harsh, but I don't know the context of the song, but I don't know. They're a good band. Nice electronic band.
Well, I have something interesting about his Bela Lugosi's death, but we'll get to that just here in a little bit. I've got a couple more things I want to ramble off before that.
All right.
The spider webs in Dracula's castle were actually created by shooting rubber cement from a rotary gun.
Rubber cement from a rotary gun.
Yeah, so the very first introduction to Dracula
in Castle Dracula.
He walks up the stairs and you see Dracula just pass through these cobwebs or these spider webs, and then Renfield actually
follows him through.
Doesn't follow him through, but he has to clear the path.
Clear the path. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So that was actually rubber cement.
One thing that it didn't really bother me, but differs from the later film and the original novel, is that Renfield's scenes where he goes, that's supposed to be like Jonathan Harker. Like Jonathan Harker goes, like follows, takes Renfield's place later on,
right,
and like concludes the deal of buying Carfax Abbey, and in this film, Jonathan Harker doesn't do that. He doesn't really do much in this film, unfortunately. He was kind of like a throwaway character. That and Lucy's character. unfortunately. You know, Lucy had, I don't know, just so much more stuff to do in like the book and other depictions of the film. So it was kind of, I don't know, a disappointment for me.
It was just something kind of lost in the translation from page to
that
film.
Was, yep.
So, but that can happen when they're sitting here dealing with a limited budget.
Indeed.
Yes. The studio did not want the scene where Dracula attacks Renfield to be filmed due to the perceived gay subtext of the situation.
Seriously?
Yeah. They actually sent a memo to the director stating that Dracula is only to attack women.
That's kind of portraying misogyny.
That's pretty sexist, if you ask me.
Very sexist. It's portraying misogyny instead of, just... What the fuck?
Yes.
But,
that's those times. Back in 1931.
Really messed up times.
Now, again, in Nosferatu, we said that there was only one scene where you could see our count blink.
Mm-hmm.
But in this movie, throughout the entire movie, there's absolutely no scene where Dracula ever blinks. And this, of course, was done to help maintain Bela Lugosi's famous stare. Which personally, I don't see how he could do it with those lights shined into his eyes.
I know, I'd be blinking all, stop doing that. It hurts my eyes.
It's horrible.
Indeed.
And here we come to the death of Bela Lugosi in 1956. But he was actually buried wearing the black silk Dracula cape as he had requested.
Interesting.
It's one of those things where it was something that he fought for very hard.
He really liked that role.
He got it.
He really loved that role.
He made that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was that role.
Absolutely.
It was one of those things where they said there was a couple of other actors that I had no real recollection of that tried out for the role, but in all honesty, I don't know if it would have been such a success if they had tried someone else.
I agree.
He had the look. Dracula was actually the 6th most popular movie at the U.S. box office for 1931 worldwide gross.
Wow.
So now we're going to lead into the top 10 list of 1931 worldwide gross.
Are we really going into that?
Oh, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to do it. Step aside, David Letterman. Number 10, we have The Smiling Lieutenant. Number 9, The Public Enemy. Number 8, No Limit. Number 7, Private Lives. Number 6, Dracula. Number 5, A Free Soul. Number 4, City Lights, which of course is a Charlie Chaplin film.
Gotcha.
We have number 3, Mata Hari, which featured Greta Garbo. We have number 2 at Cimarron, not Cinnamon, Cimarron, featuring, ready for this? You're going to like this actor, Richard Dix. That's right. At some point in history, there was a Dick Dix.
I was going to change my Steam handle recently to Richard Dick or Dick Richard or Richard Johnson Dick. Yeah, so
Dick Johnson Richards.
Dick.
And the number 1 movie in 1931 worldwide gross is Frankenstein. So you see that the monsters ruled.
They did.
1931.
They ruled the world.
Yes, they did.
Or at least the United States.
So that's all I really have.
All right.
For this movie.
Nice. Well, let's get into the Wes Craven 1992 version of Bram Stoker's.
No, we'll take
Dracula.
that on. We'll take that on here in a second. I think we might need a break.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. We need some drink.
We need some drink. We need some hydration. We need a bathroom break, or at least I do. I don't know if
bloodletting.
I don't know if I can cross my legs anymore. There may be blood.
I don't think. Oh God,
there will be blood.
All right, there will be blood. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Back to Das Reboots, our Dracula episode, 1931 version versus 1992. Well, we just got done with the 1931 version, so let's go into the 1992. Shall we, Zach?
I suppose we shall. I shall let you take the lead on this one.
All right, here we go. In the year 1462, Constantinople has fallen. Prince Dracula leaves his bride to do battle against the invading Turks. Dracula is successful in his battle against the Turks' army and impales all those who are still alive. A message arrives at the castle of Dracula, falsely announcing that Dracula has been killed in battle. Elisabetta flings herself into the river below, furious that God let his wife die while Dracula was defending his church. Dracula renounces God and the church, becoming something evil. Fast forward 400 years later, in 1897 England, law clerk Jonathan Harker travels to Transylvania to close the sale of London properties being purchased by Count Dracula. Upon his return, Jonathan and fiancée Mina Murray intend to be married. In Jonathan's absence, Mina goes to stay with her rich friend Lucy, who has just recently received 3 marriage proposals, one from Quincy Morris, the other from Jack Seward, and the other from Lord Arthur Holmwood, to whom she decides to marry Arthur. Meanwhile, Jonathan has arrived at Castle Dracula to meet the Count. Jonathan has begun to have strange dreams about 3 women who try to seduce him. To Jonathan's further unease, the Count seems to be fascinated with a picture of Mina, who upon seeing her picture believes she is the reincarnation of Elisabetta, and has forced Jonathan to write letters saying that he will be staying with the Count for at least another month. Meanwhile, the Count prepares for his trip to England, and his mindless servants fill large crates with dirt from the grounds around the castle in order for him to survive. Jonathan has now been missing for over 3 months, and Mina is sick with worry, while Lucy is involved with planning for her wedding. But Lucy is not without worries either. A particularly violent summer storm has recently washed up a ship of dead sailors upon the beach, and shortly thereafter, Lucy has begun her old habit of sleepwalking. Each time she sleepwalks, she returns bewildered and pale. Dr. Seward, who has his hands full treating the fly-eating lunatic R.M. Renfield, who Jonathan Harker took over for purchasing the properties to Count Dracula, has taken on Lucy as a patient. She knows all the signs of anemia. Well, she shows all the signs of anemia, but Dr. Seward can find no cause for any illness. Consequently, he has decided to send for a metaphysician and philosopher known as Professor Van Helsing. Upon his arrival, Van Helsing immediately begins a blood transfusion on Lucy and places garlic near her bed. When Lucy's suitor is asked what could possibly have caused such extreme anemia. Van Helsing suggests a supernatural force may have been stalking her. The others find it too fanatical to believe. However, certain mitigating circumstances say otherwise. Meanwhile, Mina has begun occupying herself with a dashingly dressed but mysterious man she met near the cinematograph. Is that how you pronounce it?
I do believe so.
Mina has begun occupying herself with a dashingly dressed but mysterious man. He introduced himself as Prince Vlad, and Mina is strangely drawn to him as though she knows him. Van Helsing leads the cast to confront Dracula as he continues his seduction of Mina, continuing Lucy's transformation into a vampire and terrorizing humanity as the lord of all dark vampires we know as Dracula. This film is directed by Francis Ford Coppola and is also adapted from Bram Stoker's Dracula. James V. Hart is credited with the screenplay. As far as the stars for this movie goes, we have Gary Oldman playing Dracula, Winona Ryder playing Mina Murray and Elizabetha, Anthony Hopkins playing Professor Abraham Van Helsing, Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker. Why are you laughing?
It totally escaped me that Keanu Reeves was in this movie, so when I had actually turned it on last night, I erupted in laughter when he came on and was sitting there going, "My dearest Mina, I will come back for you."
We also have Richard E. Grant as Dr. Jack Seward, Carrie Elways as Lord Arthur Holmwood, Billy Campbell as Quincy Morris, Sadie Frost as Lucy, and Tom Waits as R.M. Renfield.
Yes.
Now that is cool. Motherfucking Tom Waits. That guy. He's kind of messed up in the head, so he was perfect for this role.
The man has a knack for being messed up in the head. Whether it be playing R.M. Renfield in this movie or playing the brilliant inventor in Mystery Men.
That's true.
He does a fantastic job with the bizarre sort of, or at least oddball sort of characters.
Yeah, he's an oddball himself, so he's perfect for it.
Yes, I can relate.
Now, I really, 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 really like this movie because, for one thing, it's got Anthony Hopkins in it again.
Yes.
For which we reviewed Meet Joe Black, and he was like one of the main stars in it.
We've got our 7 degrees of Anthony Hopkins
going on now.
Yes.
Excuse me. I also like this film because it's a lot more faithful to the book.
Yes.
Which have been currently reading. I've been taking my time with it because I don't really necessarily want it to end. And I pick it up every Halloween around that time just to, like, continue reading. And the best part about this book is that it's all written from journal entries.
Right.
From Jonathan Harker, Mina, Lucy, Dr. Seward, I think Van Helsing has a few. But none of it is from the perspective of Dracula. It's all about Dracula.
Right.
And one thing about this movie compared to the older movie from 1931 is that the old movie didn't have any journal entries to say. It was all just portrayal.
Yes, exactly.
And they brought back little snippets of journal entries throughout this entire film, which to me was really cool because that brought the feel of the book back into play. Some facts about this movie. Red jelly was used for blood.
Red jelly.
Red jelly. You know, it's kind of good because there was a scene where Gary Oldman just like takes a knife from, or
takes the razor.
Takes the razor from Keanu Reeves and like turns around and just licks it. I'm just like, I hope that tasted good. Anyways.
Well, there's actually an interesting story about that scene.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know it?
I don't.
You don't?
What is it?
Interesting.
What do you got?
Gary Oldman was actually quite drunk the night that they filmed that scene.
Now, I would pay to see that.
You gotta think, that's some decent method acting right there.
Yeah. especially keeping the whole Hungarian accent.
Right.
And just so good. Yeah.
But the scene was actually filmed far beyond midnight, which actually added to the spirit of the scene and helped to put the cast into the proper mood.
Makes sense.
Interesting things you find out. A drunk Gary Oldman sitting there going over a straight razor.
As far as getting Winona Ryder more into the mood of shooting her scenes, director Francis Ford Coppola shouted "whore" and "slut" at Winona Ryder while filming the scene when Van Helsing catches Mina with Dracula.
Oh my.
I know. Poor Winona. That would be... I don't know. I hadn't really acted before, but just like someone saying creep or asshole, I don't know. I guess that would like elicit some sort of emotional response.
Gigolo!
Yeah. That would be like, yeah, you better
Sorry, was that a little too loud? I'll yell behind me next time.
Yeah. Anthony Hopkins also had another role in this. He played the priest in the very beginning scene that, like, he was the bishop.
Yes.
And so I did not recognize him. But
you didn't?
I didn't. Well, I recognized it was someone I knew. But I had no idea it was Anthony Hopkins.
See, this is the big difference between you and I, is that you sit here and you look at a person and you're sitting there going, I can't recognize that person. Whereas as soon as he started speaking, I'm sitting there going, that's Anthony Hopkins.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that this movie actually tied that character that he was originally introduced as and Van Helsing. So that would explain how he quickly identifies the creature. That's how he quickly identifies Count Dracula.
Right.
As being a creature of the night.
Guess who Francis Ford Coppola wanted to play as Jonathan Harker, other than Keanu Reeves?
Oh, gosh. Gerard Butler.
No.
No?
No.
Michael Caine.
Nope. He was... I'll give you a hint. He starred in the movie we did 2 episodes ago.
Brad Pitt.
No, that was 1 episode ago.
2 episodes ago.
He's really sweet.
Oh, no. Don't tell me.
What?
Johnny Depp.
Yep.
You know what's funny? I nearly said Gene Wilder. I
think he'd be too old to play John Harker.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah.
That could have worked too, though. I think that could have worked.
What? Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp as John Harker.
Well, the studio said no because they wanted someone, quote unquote, to play more, to have someone who was more of a heartthrob. So, Johnny Depp or Keanu Reeves.
I am John Harker, and I know Kung Fu.
That'd be so cool if he just, like, broke out into Kung Fu with Dracula.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if he's sitting there going, I'd like to introduce you to my friend. Come on out, Bill.
No, Bill and Ted, they time travel
Rufus!
back to 1897 to do this.
That's what the third movie's going to be. Don't spoil it.
Oh, sorry.
Don't throw a spoiler alert.
There's a spoiler right there for the third Bill and Ted movie.
Yes. They travel back in time to create Wes Craven's Dracula.
Or they go back in time to portray Dracula, or they go back in time to portray Nosferatu or something. I don't know. There's so much, like, potential. Just do whatever.
You never know.
So, Renfield, who was played by Tom Waits, could have been played by Steve Buscemi.
That I could have seen.
I could have seen that, too.
I definitely, well, especially after watching him in Mr. Deeds as Crazy Eyes. You can definitely see that.
He had crazy eyes in another movie. Was it Big Daddy?
Well, he's just kind of got those eyes.
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think it was Big Daddy though when he was the homeless man.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
weren't
yeah,
like
yeah.
they
Yeah,
weren't
there
like
was.
crazy eyes crazy, but they were still kind of like, hey, if only you folks at home could see what I'm doing right now. Steve is getting a front row view of just, hey, what's it? Don't forget, you owe me a McDonald's breakfast.
Francis Ford Coppola is very good friends with George Lucas, actually.
Really?
And it was in the end, spoiler alert here. It was at the end of the movie that George Lucas suggested that in adherence to vampire mythology, Mina should decapitate Dracula as the ultimate release for him to reach heaven. Coppola agreed and shot it 3 weeks before the film's release.
Wow. Talk about your last-minute additions.
I know, last-minute adjustments to the film and just going for it.
You have to think, though, that's only the true way you could have ended this movie.
Right.
Is with that significance of, granted she realizes what exactly he's done to her, but at the same time, she still loves him to the point where she wants him to be fully at rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, they did take some liberties with this film as far as Mina. In the original book, there was no Elisabetta looking like Mina. That is totally invented for this film, and that Dracula pursues Mina because she looks like his old wife back in the 15th century.
But it also makes sense.
It makes a lot more sense because
it definitely brings that drawn in.
Well, it gives a more a much better pursuit for why he's going after Mina and why he's so interested in her. And I think that works. I think they get a great job doing that, and something that kind of lacks from the book. Mm-hmm. That whole element of romance.
Or the original movie where he's simply sitting here staring at a picture of her and he goes, "My, what a lovely neck she has."
Exactly. So yeah, they did that. I thought it was really good. That was really cool. There are several other liberties that they took into this. Like in the novel, Dracula immediately dies and crumbles into dust after being stabbed in the heart. Here, he's just dead, and then Mina just takes the sword and rips the head or chops the head right off. One thing that differed from the 1931 was the sunlight, the whole sunlight trope.
Yes.
You know how vampires, they die from sunlight, and that was included in the 1931, which was originally established in the Nosferatu film,
Correct.
as you told me. But in this film, they're aside from what you may believe, vampires don't really suffer from sunlight, which was, I don't know why they did that, but it was just okay, I guess. I guess they wanted to play around with the whole movie theater.
Maybe it was a foreshadowing of Twilight, and it was just the location that they were at.
Yeah, I can see that.
So much smog in England.
Yeah. But this entire film, when I was younger, I did not watch this.
I can't blame you. I wouldn't want your parents to let you watch this because I was watching it last night and going, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
You have partial nudity. You have very much traumatic sequences of blood and certain graphic decapitations. And
here's the thing about a lot of people say that Bram Stoker, and it's even noticeable in the novel, that Dracula is based off of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler.
correct.
I don't know who says that's not true, but throughout the entire novel, Dracula is talking about how he used to be this great warrior. He has a great disgust for the Turks because when he was a kid, he and his brother Radu were political hostages, and they were political hostages under Turk rule, and they were forced to study the ways of Islam. Dracula resented that, did not go with it. Radu, however, converted to Islam and defected to the Turks, and he actually became a sultan's concubine at one point in his life. Yeah, that's a novel I would love to write, or if it's already written, I'd love to read about.
I'll keep an eye on that for your birthday.
But Dracula, he followed his father's footsteps and became part of the Order of the Dragon and waged war against the Turks, So basically he waged war against his brother, which is a great plot point, I think,
It's a nice biblical reference, too.
Absolutely.
That relation to Cain and Abel.
So a lot of those references. 1931, no references of Vlad the Impaler.
No.
Not at all.
It was very much so just like I set forth, this is your vampire here. There was no backstory. Mm-hmm. There was no creation of this is who we've got.
Right.
So that's the one thing I do like about this movie is that they definitely build up to, this character being the way that they are. The other thing I like about this movie is that it's 400 years later. They don't have him looking young.
Oh, yeah. He looks
youthful.
old.
He looks old
yeah.
in the initial introduction to him.
He looks old, run down, and falling apart almost.
Right.
So that's really cool because they don't it's a freeze frame of his immortality. He's old and he sucks the young life out of John Harker, who, when that happens, John Harker has gray hair, and that's pretty much it. They didn't really do anything else with that, but it was a nice little effect and ditty.
He talked a little slower.
Well, it's all the blood loss, man.
A little bit more gruff, maybe.
Yeah. But, yeah, I didn't watch this movie until 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I'm going to give you an even bigger shocker. I didn't watch it until last night.
And well,
I had never seen this before, but it was one of those movies where
just so amazed by it.
It draws you in. Mm. It definitely draws you in. It's definitely on the more graphic side. There's some nudity in there for you gentlemen who love to find
and ladies too.
Yes,
but
can't leave them out.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I used to do when I was a kid. Back in the old video stores. Back in the day.
Did you try and do the old switcheroo?
No. I'd go to the horror section genre and just look at all the movies of all of these scary monsters and stuff, and then me and my friend would visualize of trying to defeat them as heroes and Jedi Knights or fighter pilots, whatever have you. And that was my movie monster experience when I was younger, but I always held Dracula as the king of all monsters, and mainly because I played Castlevania when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And Castlevania, the main antagonist of that is Count Dracula. So I always hold him as this huge Lord of Darkness, of all darkness, Lord of all monsters, because he can compel other monsters and dominate all of them, and so...
You do have the slight upper hand on me with that aspect due to the fact that I did not play Castlevania.
Oh, such a good game. This is plural.
And I was the first introduction I really had to this was actually Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So I was definitely brought into the more gentler side of the Dark One.
Yeah. There is a line that transferred almost verbatim from 1931 to this one, and I think it's in the novel too, but don't quote me on that. See what I did there? Where...
Let me guess. Creatures of the night.
Yes, and what sweet music.
What sweet music.
Yeah, talking about the wolves at Castle Dracula singing in the background. Yeah, so I immediately like caught that on. One moment in the film I just laughed my ass off is when Jack, Arthur, and Quincy come out to the courtyard after trying to give blood to Lucy.
Yeah, spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah, spoiler alert here. And they're fucking drinking brandy or something. They're drinking whiskey, bourbon, brandy right after giving blood. I'm just like, how are you not passing out right now?
You know, back in those days, men were made of brandy.
Yeah. So that's probably why they couldn't save Lucy. They were just transferring alcohol into her system, just making her drunk.
That's very possible. She may have never been turned at all. This may have just been a very intoxicated accident.
It was all just a drunken dream.
It's good to know.
Yep.
It's good to know the alternatives.
The one thing I really liked about this film, compared to the last one, 1931 version, 1931 version portrays Dracula as this evil embodiment.
Right.
This one's kind of more of like a heartbroken love story.
You definitely are drawn more into the character of Count Dracula with this movie due to the fact that he doesn't have like that fully evil sort of feel about him. He's got those softer moments, especially when he's dealing with Mina, to where you can actually like kind of relate to him and actually get drawn into thinking that maybe he's not such a bad guy after all.
Yeah, he's just...
And then all of a sudden Mina decides to go marry John, and all of a sudden you see the bastard come out.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just added more of a realism that this embodiment of evil has feelings too. And I feel like it's funny that George Lucas was friends with Francis Ford Coppola. And I feel like Francis Ford Coppola could have given him some pointers about Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader during the prequels.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't create this annoying long-haired monster to follow them around and be the quote-unquote comedic relief.
Yeah.
You can do better, George.
Oh, it's out of his hands now. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins. Let's talk about Anthony Hopkins a bit.
What shall we talk about him?
I feel like he almost steals the show here.
He is definitely one of those most memorable characters of this movie. I think it's a very hard battle between... It's literally Dracula versus Van Helsing at this point. It is much. Gary Oldman, who's sitting here bringing a more compassionate side to Dracula, as well as a vicious side. Mm-hmm. And then we have Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yep. Sir Anthony Hopkins, who has some of the best lines throughout the movie. Like, my favorite was, like, spoiler alert, Lucy's funeral.
We're going to have so many spoiler alerts in here.
I know, it's just going to be
I don't think we have to mark them all, but...
Why? They like the alarms? I don't know. If not. You will like the alarms.
You will like... the spoiler alerts.
But Anthony Hopkins is asking about some knives to Dr. Seward, and Dr. Seward's like, "What? More autopsies?" And Anthony Hopkins, Van Helsing's like, "No, I just want to cut off her head and take out her heart." At the funeral.
That line, just the way he so nonchalantly throws it out there, is one of the things that just makes this character for me. He's just very nonchalant about his whole action in this, because there's also the point where he's talking with Mina about Lucy.
Yeah.
And did she go peacefully? He's like, well, she was in severe pain, but then we chopped off her head and drove a stake through her heart. Mm-hmm. Now she's dead. And it was just very like, hey, that shit happens.
Let's look at the list.
The list
of actors who could have played Dracula.
Ooh.
instead of good old Gary Oldman. Because
I don't think there could have been any other people, but let's hear what the production company had to think about it.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay, maybe.
Alec Baldwin.
No. I'm going to draw the line right there. No.
Jason Patrick.
Oh.
Aidan Quinn. You're gonna laugh at this next one. These next
gosh,
3 actually.
Oh.
Christian Slater.
Okay.
Keanu Reeves.
Oh my god.
Nicolas Cage. So yeah.
See, like, nothing against those last 2 actors, but it's just, it would have been such a similar performance, Yeah. I am Count Dracula.
Hugh Grant.
Maybe.
Sting.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been really interesting. And how about this one? Alan Rickman.
Oh. Give me a time machine so we can go make this movie with him.
Yeah.
In like an alternate timeline.
I would have been okay with that. One movie I just saw was Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
And he was in that. I have never seen Galaxy Quest until last weekend, and it was pretty good.
Did you catch it on television? Or did you find it on Netflix?
Netflix.
Aha.
Good on Netflix. I don't watch cable, man.
Well, I happened to be at Comic-Con in Grand Rapids here this past weekend, and it was playing on television back to back.
Yeah?
So I caught the movie like right about midway, watched it till the end, and then it started all over again, and I said, you know what, I can't go anywhere. Because it's one of those movies that speaks to me as a kid, and even as I grew up, there's certain things that you're brought aware to about this movie that make it more adult, whether it be the bad lip syncing when Sigourney Weaver's character sits here and says, well, screw that. You look at her lips. She's not saying screw. She's dropping an F-bomb.
Yep. Who gives
or
a
the
shit?
fact that Tony Shalhoub's character is actually supposed to be stoned basically the whole time he's up there. And that, go back and watch that movie, and it explains a lot of his character standing at the vending machine, asking for a quarter. Just that very, like, hey guys, we got a little issue down here. Just very nonchalant's the word I'm looking for, I do believe.
Yeah.
Just very indifferent about the situation.
Earnings from this film was enough to save Francis Ford Coppola's studio from bankruptcy after suffering from financial difficulties and liabilities of $27 million over the past 3 years. So, great film. Absolutely, yeah. It definitely... Man, I wish I saw it in theaters. But I also wish I saw this. Preview audiences are alleged to have found the film too gory. So 25 minutes of footage was removed to make it less bloody.
Interesting.
25 minutes. I want to see all that goriness now.
The director's cut.
Yeah, I wonder if it exists.
It's quite possible. I don't know if that's the copy that I had last night or what. All I know is that I got it from the library. And it's amazing what you can find at your local library.
Yep, it really is. Now, I want to talk about the legacy of Dracula.
Yes.
And probably the greatest legacy, and something that we got out of this book, films, and everything was the video game Castlevania, which you never played. But seriously,
I'm sorry.
You really gotta play these games.
I'm letting down my nerd culture right now. I'm so
There are over 20
sorry.
games out there, and they all have to do about defeating Dracula.
I said I'm sorry.
But it's just so cool because, like, in the first Castlevania game, the bosses throughout Castlevania, like, Dracula's the last boss.
Naturally.
But you have to face, before him, Death, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, Imhotep, and later on in other games, you get to fight Dr. Jekyll as Mr. Hyde.
Interesting.
So a lot of these monsters, everything.
You basically get all these Universal monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Which I think is so cool, so awesome, and I don't know, just very kick-ass to the game.
Sweet.
Yeah. With that in mind, are we ready for numbers, Zach?
I don't know. Are we ready for the numbers?
We could do numbers.
If you feel it's time for numbers, let's ring up that old cash register and get it going.
Cha-ching with the bling bling. That should be a song. Is it a song? I think it might be a song.
I'd rather it not be.
You asshole. All right. Numbers. Budget. 1931 Dracula. $355,000.
Yes.
1992 budget. $40 million.
Quite the difference.
Indubitably, yeah.
But there was a lot of special effects in this movie.
Indeed. A lot of special effects. 1931 gross cost. We don't have a number for this for some reason.
I searched all over the place. I searched on official websites. I searched on Universal Pictures.
Records were really sketchy back in the 30s when it comes to filmmaking.
They at least kept the budget.
At least.
That's at least a good comparison.
However, 1992 gross, to this day, $82.5 million. Almost. Nope, not almost. More than double their budget.
Yes.
So, that's good. Ratings. IMDb rating for 1931 Dracula. 7.6 stars out of 10. 1992. 7.5.
Ooh.
Very close.
Yes.
Super close. Rotten Tomatoes. 1931 edition. 91%. Fresh
Bravo.
rating.
I'm going to give that an applause right now.
Yes, very much so. 1992 version, 78% fresh rating. Which, not as good, but it's still good, I guess.
I think they were also kind of offset by the viciousness of this movie. It's very well possible.
Well, I have to say 80s horror films, I want to say, is the golden age of all horror.
Oh, yeah.
Decades, because not only was stop animation special effects freaky as fuck, in my opinion.
For the most part, yes.
But it was a lot of innovation during those times, and man, did it work. So, in 1992, Dracula came out, and it was still in that sort of golden age era, and so it just was like the pinnacle of times, I think.
There wasn't even that much claymation, though. It was all magnificent costumes and, occasionally sitting here putting in contacts to sit there and make the eyes look all red and...
Oh, yeah.
Just his whole kind of bat werewolf sort of monstrosity thing.
Oh, God.
That's sitting there making love in the middle of a courtyard. I'm sitting there going, wow. I did not need to see that, but at the same time, don't let me stop you.
There was a bestiality feel to it as well.
Shh. Just give in to it.
Just give into it. Into it. All right. Shall we call the question now after the numbers?
I do believe we are ready.
All right, Zach.
Sound the horns!
The horns have been sounded, the gods have spoken, the angels have sung. Zach, does Dracula 1992 edition get the boot or the reboot?
Oh, well, let me at least start by saying that each one of these movies has won me over. I definitely am drawn into the original one as far as my pick, but I do appreciate the value and the development that they have done with the newer version. But just something about that classic nostalgia. Granted, we didn't get a backstory with Dracula, but there was also so much said without even having to be shown. You knew that he was a creature of the night. You knew that he was taking these women to sit here and gain strength and get them under his control. Mm-hmm. But yet they didn't have to go into that very graphic point of Dracula.
So you're going for the 1931 then?
I am going to stick with my 1931 version and say that the new one, as much as I would love to pull a Switzerland, we've agreed to go against it, so I am going to give the latest one the boot.
Well, I'm definitely going with the reboot then. 1992 version, because as being a huge reader and writer as I am, it was more faithful to the novel. There's a lot more backstory, which I think adds to the romance of the entire character of Dracula. And who Dracula really is. You know, he's not just some Lord of Darkness. He's a guy who was a great warrior. He had history. He had motivation to be who he is. And so that just like led into the whole epicness feel of this movie compared to the last one, which last one was just so slow. The tape hiss really bothered me. Really, really bothered me. As a sound engineer and producer, I hate it. I could not stand it, and man, and like the whole, there were so many throwaway characters in the old one. Jonathan Harker, nothing to do. Lucy, nothing to do. I mean, yeah, they depicted her as being like Dracula's first victim in England. After that, though, she has so much more to contribute, though. Like, even in the novel, she did exactly how she was portrayed in the 1992 version. So, yeah, I just couldn't get on board with the old one. Anthony Hopkins in this latest movie too is just awesome. Gary Oldman's awesome. All the actors I thought did a good job, including Mr. Keanu Reeves. You know, his character, he doesn't have that much to do. You know, he's a naive gentleman, businessman, who he exactly portrayed. That's all you have to do with the character. In the old movie, he wasn't even portrayed as like a businessman. It was all taken care of by Renfield. Like, Renfield stole, like, the entire plot of Harker.
Right.
You know, other than being insane.
But it does definitely follow it kind of follows a little bit more so of the original Nosferatu, whereas Renfield is definitely more manic, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing against Tom Waite, but the 1931 version of Renfield is definitely more crazy, if you ask me. He's not only got the, mannerisms down, but he's also got, like, the look.
You know, if I had to choose between the Renfields, I would definitely go with the 1931 portrayal, actually. Tom Waits is great, but they did a lot more with Renfield, which in the book they really didn't do that much other than him being portrayed as a patient of Dr. Seward's,
right?
Which 1992 version was portrayed as well. So, yep, there we go. Split decision. I can't use the angel singing sound effect for this one.
That was so beautiful in this episode. It brought me to tears.
I apologize.
Don't worry. One day,
someday, somehow, one way and another.
Yes. One day in the near future, our visions will collide.
Follow us on our Facebook page, Das Reboot. Also, follow us on Twitter at DasReb, at DASREB. We'd like to hear your opinion. We want to get some feedback about what you like, what you don't like. You can call us names. We don't care. We'll call
let us
you
know
out.
what you think.
We'll have an Angry Tweets version someday.
Ooh. Is that going to be part of Das Reboot Redemption?
Yes, Das Reboot Redemption.
Yes.
Also, I think maybe we should have like a contest or a giveaway or something sometime soon in the future.
At some point, yeah, it would be a wise idea to do.
I agree. Zach, what are we doing next for next episode?
Oh gosh, you caught me with my pants down.
Well, we only got 3 more episodes left in this season.
Are you sure it's only 3?
Maybe.
I thought it was a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Well,
I thought we had 13 to go.
13 episodes?
It's very well possible.
My God, man. Where have I been?
I've only got 2 written down here. Let's see. Episode 1 was RoboCop. Episode 2 was Batman. Episode 3, Ocean's 11. Episode 4 was Red Dawn. Episode 5, Death Takes a Holiday / Meet Joe Black. But that got replaced by Willy Wonka. So that became 6. Dracula is now 7. So next we actually have The Great Gatsby.
Ooh. My favorite book ever, actually. I love Dracula, but Great Gatsby was the theme of my wedding.
Yes.
Actually.
Your wife is gonna shit.
Yeah. So I think we'll have Crystal back on for our next episode.
It's possible. We could have Crystal back on. We could possibly bring in Rose.
Or Tom.
We have a couple of friends that
I tried having Tom on this episode, but he couldn't do it. Damn you, Tom. Anyways.
We'll bring him in for Footloose.
And Star Trek.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Stephen Jacoby.
I am Zachary Lyle.
This has been Das Reboot.
Thanks for joining us. Tune in again next time.
Ciao!
Das Reboot!